Morning, Mom. I'm Mary France Lumapagbaita from BSE Filipino 1B. I am 18 years old and I will show you the summary of lesson in child and adolescence learners and learning principles. You have been fascinating developmental journey your whole life long, and now you are going to have the opportunity to learn about the study of human development. So when we say growth, it refers to change in physical attributes of a person, like height, weight, size, and length, etc. It is quantitative. It starts with conception but ends some particular age. On the other hand, human development is the overall pattern of movement or change such as the physical, cognitive, psychosocial, etc. that begins at conception and continues through the lifespan. There are two approaches to human development, the traditional and the approaches. The traditional and lifespan approaches are the most popular methods of understanding human development. A traditional approach is emphasize extensive change from birth to adolescence or little or no change in adulthood and decline at late old age. Or like it example is um, walang pagbabago. So hindi lumalaki or tumatangkad. There are the lifespan approach believes that even the adulthood developmental change take place at as it does in childhood. Lifespan approach was developed by German psychologist Paul Batz, a leading expert on lifespan and aging. He was based this approach on several key principles. So there are some key principles of Paul Batz. Number one, development occurs across one's entire life or lifelong. Lifelong development means that development is not completed in infancy or childhood or at any specific age. It encompasses the entire lifespan from conception to death. Number two is development is multidimensional. Multidimensional by mo- by multidimensionality, but is referring to the fact that a complex interplay of factors influenced by development across the lifespan, including the biological, cognitive, and socio-emotional change. He argues that a dynamic interaction of these factors is what influences an individual's development. Number three is development is multidirectional. Ball states that the development of particular domain does not occur in a strictly in a linear fashion, but the development of certain traits can be characterized as having the capacity for both an increase and decrease in efficacy over the course of an individual life. Development is plus Number four is development is plastic. It is mean that characteristics are malleable and changeable. Plasticity denotes that interpersonal variability and focuses heavily on the potential and limits of the nature of human development. Number five is development is influenced by contextual and sociocultural influence. Development occurs in context and varies from person to person, depending on factors such as person's biology, family, schools, church, profession, nationality, and ethnicity. But it defined three types of influence that operate through the life course. Normative, the normative age graded influences, the normative history graded influences, and the normative influence. But wrote that these three influence operates throughout the life course. Their effects accumulate with time and as a dynamic package, they are responsible for how lives develop. When we say normative age graded influences, there uh, are those biological and environmental factors that have a strong correlation, correlation with a chronological age, such as puberty or menopause or age-based social practices such as beginning school or entering retirement. Number two is the normative history graded influences are associated with a specific time period that defines the broader environmental and cultural context in which an individual develops. For an example, development and identity are influenced by historical events of the people who experience them, such as Depression, WW, Vietnam Cold War. Okay, we moved the. Okay, this one is the normative influence are unpredictable and not tied to a certain developmental time and a person's development or to a historical period. They are the unique experiences of an individual, whether biological and environment, that shape that in development process. This could include milestone like earning a master's degree or getting a certain job offer, or other events like going through a divorce or coping with the death of child. The most important aspect of contextualism is a paradigm is that the system of influence work together to affect development. Development is multidisciplinary, and any single discipline's account of development across the lifespan would not be able to express all aspects of this theoretical framework. That is why it is suggested explicitly by lifespan researchers that a combination of discipline is necessary to understand development. Psychologists, sociologists, neuroscientists, anthropologists, educators, economic historians, medical researchers, and others may all be interested and involved in research related to the normative age graded, normative history graded, and normative influence that helps shape development. Some of them is some major principle of human development. Development occurs a relatively orderly sequence. This indicates that development happens in an organized and predictable manner, a series of steps that generally take place after one another. This means that pattern of development is likely to be similar. The Sipacodal pattern is where the greatest development takes place of the top of the body. The head and physical developments move gradually downwards, top to the bottom, and neck, shoulders, and trunk, etc. The proximodestal pattern is with growth start at the center of the body and moves toward the extremities extremities. An example of such pattern is the early development of muscular control of the trunk and arms, relative to the hands and fingers. The outcomes of developmental process and the rate of development are likely to vary among individual. Various people develop at different rates, the rates of which particular individuals develop vary depending on the child. A child may develop faster and more favorably by that another child due to differences in heredity and environment, since heredity and environment are different from different people, it seems obvious that individuals will encounter factors that make them different from the other individuals. Although the patterns of and sequence for development are usually the same for all children, the rates at which individual children reach the developmental stage will be different. For example, the developmental 21 timing of events can affect individuals in different ways because of their current level of maturity and understanding. For instance, some children walk at 10 months while other walks a few months older of 18 month of age. Also, people encounter several obstacles, change and these circumstances that have influence on their growth as they go through life. As a result, we can expect individual differences in developmental characteristic and variation in the ages when people experience events that will influence their development. So development takes place gradually. Will some change occur in a flash on inside? More often it takes weeks, months, or years. For a person undergo change the result in the displays development characteristic. Development as process and complex. Human development is a complex process that cannot be compart- compartmentalized into any one domain. All are intri- intrinsically interwoven and development in one area impacts of development in other areas. It is the product of biological, cognitive, and social emotional process. Biological process involves change in the individual's physical nature. When the cognitive process it is involved change in the individual's thought, intelligence, and language. When the social-emotional process include changes in the individual's relationships with other people. These biological, cognitive, and socio-emotional processes are inextra- inextricably intertwined. With when the biological process affects the cognitive process, which in turn affect the socio-emotional process. There are principle of child development and learning that inform practices. Number one is all areas of development and learning are important. Number two is learning and development follows sequence. Development and learning proceed at varying rates. Development and learning result from an interaction of maturation experience. Number five, early experiences have profound effects on development and learning. Development proceeds towards greater complexity, self-regulation, and symbolic or representation capacities. Children develop best when they have secure relationship. Development and learning occur uh, in and are influenced by multiple social and cultural contexts. Children learn in a variety of ways. Play is an important vehicle for developing self-regulation and promoting language, cognition, and social competence. Development and learning advance when children are challenged. Children's experience shape their motivation and approach to learning. So there is the glossary. A cohort is a group of people who are born are at roughly the same time period in a particular society. Cohort shares histories and context for living. Members of a cohort have experienced the same historical events and cultural climates, which have impact on the values, priorities, and goals that may guide their lives. Self-regulation theory, or SRT, is a system of conscious personal management that involves the process of guiding one's own true behaviors and feelings to reach the goals. It suggests that there is a process of occurring in adjusting our performance, both mental and physical in nature, in response to corrective feedback within our social and physical environment. When the selective optimization with comprehension compensation is a lifespan model of psychological and behavioral management for adaptation to change related to human development and for adaptation to age related gains and losses. Social emotional development includes the child's experience, expression, and management of emotions and the ability to establish positive and rewarding relationship with the others. There are the characteristic of developmental tasks. Consider that many various aspects of a person lifespan that influence a person's development, such as the individual's biological development and physical structure, the society in which the person lives, and the resulting cultural influence, the individual's personal characteristic and values and goals. There are sensitive periods which Haviger Hertz refers to as teachable moments when an individual is mature enough to learn developmental tasks. The tasks can be physical, such as walking, cognitive, such as learning to read, or social, such as development has passed language skills, or, for example, continue to improve as one learns more complex ways of expressing oneself. Developmental tasks emerge from the three distinct sources. Uh, Haviger's 1948-1953 and Haviger's value psychosocial model. The first important issue is biology. Second is psychology, and the last one is the sociology. He identifies three sources of developmental tasks. There are the physical maturation. Some tasks are universal regardless of where you live because they are related to human biology. Socio-structural and cultural influences are the other source of developmental challenges. Some tasks different from one society to the next. Personal values and goals are the third source of developmental tasks. These personal factors emerge as a result of the combination of the uh, ontogenetic and environmental factors. So we continue to the infancy and toddlerhood. The first 2 years of life are one of the dramatic growth and change. So a newborn with a keen sense of hearing but very poor vision is transformed into a walking, talking, talking toddler within a relatively short period of time. Early childhood. This period is also referred to as the preschool years and consists of the year which follow toddlerhood and precede formal schooling. As a 2 to 6 years old, the child is busy learning language, is gaining a sense of self and greater independence, and it is beginning to learn the working of the physical world comprise middle and late childhood, and much of what child children experience at this age is connected to their involvement in the early. So wait, the middle and late childhood, the age of 6 to the one set of favorite grades of school. Now, the world becomes one learning and testing new academic skills, and by assessing one's abilities and accomplishments by making comparisons between self and others. Emer- Emerging adults, the period of emerging adults is a transitional time between the end of adolescence and before individuals acquire all the benchmark of adulthood. Early adulthood early adulthood is intimate relationship establishing families and work are primary concern at this stage of life. Middle adulthood, this is a period in which aging becomes more noticeable and when many people are at their peak of productivity in love and work. Late adulthood, hood, late adulthood. Late adulthood is sometimes subdivided into the two categories: the young old, um, wait, the young old who are from 61 to 84 years old, and that the oldest of who are 85 years old, and others. So there is the issue of human development. Human development has four theoretical issue: nature versus nature, continuity versus stage, stability versus change, and active versus passive. Nature and nature. Why are you the way you are? As you consider some of you features, height, weight, personality, being diabetic, etc. Ask yourself whether there are features are a result of heredity or environmental factors or both. Chances can see the way in which both heredity and environmental factor, such as lifestyle, diet, and so on, have contributed this feature for decades. Scholars have carried on the nature debate for any particular feature. Those on the side of nature would argue that heredity plays the most important role in bringing about the features. Those on the side of nature would argue that one's environment is most significant in shaping the way we are. The debate continues in all aspects of human development, and most scholars agree that there is a constant interplay between the two forces. Continuity versus discontinuity is human development best characterized as a slow gradual process. It is the best viewed as one of more abrupt change. Okay, the answer to the question often depends on which developmental theories you ask and the topic is being studied. So the theories of Freud, Erikson, Flade, and Coverage are called stage theories. Stage theories is this. Wait. Oh my. Stage theories is this continuous development assume that development change often occurs in distinct stages that's qualitatively different from each other and in a set universal sequence at each stage of development. Children and adults have different qualities and characteristics. Continuous development from instance, they would see the adult as not passing new skills but more advanced skills that were. We're already present in some from in the child brain development and environmental experience contribute to the acquisition of more developed skills. Stability versus change. How similar are you to how you were as a child? Were you always as outgoing or reserved as you are now? Some theories argue that the personality traits of adults are rooted in the behavioral and emotional tendencies of the infant in the young child. Others disagree and believe that these initial tendencies are modified by social and cultural force over time. Active versus passive. How much do you play a role your own developmental path? Are you at the whim of your genetic and inheritance or the environment that surrounds you? Active begins are that prime determiners of the own abilities and traits. Some theorists see the humans as playing as a much more active role in their own development. For instance, believe that children actively explore their world and human as being more passive in developmental process. Passive begins whole characteristics are modified either by social influences, parents, other significant people, and outside events, but or by biological change beyond the control. Stab- Stability change versus change. How similar are you to how were as a child? Were you always as outgoing to reserve as you now? Some theories. Okay na pala to. Okay. So, that's all po, ma'am. And thank you po.